the seasonings and stuff to buy for the white chocolate shrimp Alfredo.
The anticipation surrounding Tammy's arrival wasn't about curiosity alone. It was about history. The sisters have shared decades of experiences together, growing up in difficult circumstances and leaning on each other through moments most people never saw. Their relationship has always been intense, sometimes loving, sometimes strained, but always deeply connected. When Amy reached this new chapter of her life, people wondered how Tammy would fit into the moment. Would she arrive with warmth and support? Would unresolved feelings create tension? In the end, the answer seemed to be both. Amy's path toward this wedding had been far from simple. Her life over the past several years unfolded in front of millions of viewers. Fans watched her navigate motherhood, personal struggles, and emotional challenges while trying to rebuild stability in her life. The wedding itself represented something larger than a romantic milestone. It symbolized a fresh start after a period that had tested her resilience. Standing at the center of a carefully decorated venue, Amy wasn't just preparing to exchange vows. She was stepping into a new phase of her life that she hoped would bring peace, stability, and a sense of belonging she had been seeking. The ceremony setting reflected that hope. The venue had a soft, romantic feel that balanced simplicity with warmth. Light pink flowers lined the aisle, creating a gentle path leading toward the altar. Strings of small lights hung across wooden beams above the guests, giving the room a quiet glow that made everything feel intimate and calm. Friends and relatives gathered early, filling the seats with whispered conversations and small bursts of laughter. On the surface, everything felt joyful and celebratory. Yet beneath that calm atmosphere, an undercurrent of anticipation lingered. Many people present knew the complicated story behind the sisters' relationship. Over the years, Amy had taken on responsibilities that sometimes left her feeling overwhelmed. Tammy, in turn, had often struggled with feelings of frustration and isolation, especially during the most difficult periods of her health journey. Their arguments had been visible on screen more than once, and viewers had seen how quickly misunderstandings between them could escalate. Because of that history, Tammy's arrival carried emotional weight far beyond a typical wedding guest's entrance. Over the past few seasons of the show, Tammy's personal transformation had become one of the most powerful storylines. Her health struggles had once reached life-threatening levels, forcing her into hospital care and rehabilitation programs. Many fans remember the fear and uncertainty that surrounded those moments. At times, it seemed as though the path forward might be impossible. But slowly, step by step, Tammy began changing her life. Through medical support, determination, and painful self-reflection, she started losing weight and rebuilding her sense of independence. The woman stepping out of the car outside Amy's wedding venue looked noticeably different from the Tammy viewers had first met years earlier. Her face appeared slimmer and more relaxed. She moved with more confidence than before. Even the way she carried herself suggested someone who had fought a difficult battle and come out stronger on the other side. Still, transformation on the outside does not erase complicated emotions. The past rarely disappears just because circumstances improve. Before entering the building, Tammy paused briefly. Cameras captured the moment as she adjusted her dress and looked toward the entrance. For a second, her expression revealed hesitation. It wasn't fear exactly, but it carried the weight of everything that had happened between the sisters over the years. Walking into the venue meant facing family members who had seen the hardest moments of her life. It also meant stepping into Amy's new world, one that now included a husband and new dynamics within the family. Inside the venue, guests continued chatting and waiting for the ceremony to begin. But when word spread quietly through the room that Tammy had arrived, the energy shifted. Conversations softened. Some people turned subtly toward the entrance. It wasn't hostility that filled the air. It was anticipation, mixed with curiosity about how the moment would unfold. The sisters' relationship had always been complex. They grew up sharing everything, including the struggles that shaped their early lives. That kind of shared history creates an unbreakable bond, but it can also carry lingering tension. There were periods when Amy felt responsible for helping Tammy manage everyday challenges. There were other times when Tammy felt misunderstood or left behind as Amy's life began moving in new directions. These emotions never completely disappeared. They simply evolved as both women continued changing. Because of that, some family members wondered privately whether Tammy might feel uneasy about Amy marrying someone new. Weddings often shift family dynamics. When a new partner enters the picture, relationships adjust in ways that can be difficult at first. Brian, Amy's fiancé, was still relatively new to the extended family circle. While he had shown patience and kindness throughout the season, stepping into a family with such a long and complicated history was bound to create uncertainty. Meanwhile, inside the bridal suite, Amy was preparing for the ceremony. She stood near a mirror while a few close relatives helped adjust the delicate lace sleeves of her gown. The dress flowed gently around her, elegant, but not overly elaborate. Her hair was styled simply, and the smile on her face carried a mixture of excitement and nervous energy. For fans who had followed her journey for years, the moment felt almost surreal. Amy looked happier and more hopeful than she had in a long time. Then someone quietly stepped into the room and shared the news. Tammy had arrived. For just a second, Amy froze. The pause lasted only a heartbeat, but it spoke volumes about the complicated emotions tied to that moment. After everything the sisters had experienced together, Tammy's presence meant more than simply attending the ceremony. It represented effort. It meant she cared enough to show up despite any lingering tension or discomfort. Amy's reaction quickly softened into a gentle smile. According to those nearby, she quietly said, "She came." The words were simple, yet they carried years of shared struggles, arguments, and forgiveness. In that brief sentence, you could hear relief and gratitude at the same time. Tammy didn't walk into the venue with a dramatic flourish. There were no loud announcements or emotional confrontations. Instead, she entered quietly and began moving through the crowd. Some relatives greeted her warmly, offering hugs or friendly smiles. Others seemed slightly cautious, perhaps remembering difficult family gatherings in the past. Those mixed reactions weren't unusual. Healing within families rarely happens all at once. A camera lingered on Tammy as she scanned the room. Her eyes moved slowly across the space, searching through clusters of guests. It was hard to know exactly what she was feeling in that moment. Maybe she was looking for Amy. Maybe she was preparing herself for possible awkward conversations. Whatever the case, the tension was noticeable. At the same time, viewers watching the episode at home immediately picked up on that subtle shift in mood. Social media began filling with comments almost instantly. Some fans wrote that Tammy looked nervous but determined. Others hoped the sisters would share a heartfelt moment before the ceremony began. The anticipation built quickly, turning a quiet entrance into one of the most talked about moments of the episode. Eventually, the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. Amy stepped out from behind a curtain near the hallway that led toward the main room. She still held her bouquet, the pale flowers contrasting softly against the white fabric of her dress. When she looked up and saw Tammy standing across the room, time seemed to slow. For a brief second, neither of them moved. Then Amy took the first step forward. Music from the ceremony rehearsal continued playing in the background, making it impossible to hear exactly what they said to each other. But words weren't really necessary. When they finally reached each other, the sisters embraced tightly. Tammy wrapped her arms around Amy, and Amy leaned into the hug, resting her face against Tammy's shoulder. The moment wasn't polished or theatrical. It looked raw and genuine, the kind of emotional exchange that can't be scripted. Years of shared experiences, arguments, forgiveness, and growth seemed to settle into that single hug. Guests nearby watched quietly, some smiling, others blinking back tears. For fans who had followed their story since the early days of the show, the scene carried enormous meaning. The sisters had fought, supported each other, drifted apart, and found their way back together more than once. Seeing them reconnect in such a peaceful way at Amy's wedding felt like a milestone not just for the family, but for the entire journey viewers had witnessed. And that was only the beginning of a night that would continue revealing how far both sisters had come. After that quiet but powerful hug, the atmosphere inside the venue began to soften. The tension that had lingered when Tammy first walked in slowly faded, replaced by a sense of cautious relief. Guests who had been watching from a distance returned to their conversations, though many still glanced toward the sisters with warm smiles. It was clear that the moment mattered not only to Amy and Tammy, but to everyone who had witnessed their complicated journey over the years on 1,000-pound sisters. For Amy, the hug seemed to bring an emotional release she had been holding back all morning. Weddings are already overwhelming events, filled with pressure, expectations, and nerves. But for her, there was an added layer of emotion because of the complicated relationship she shared with Tammy Slaton. Their connection had never been simple, yet it had always been deeply meaningful. Seeing Tammy standing there, present and supportive, allowed Amy to relax in a way that hadn't been possible earlier in the day. Those close to the sisters noticed the shift almost immediately. Amy's shoulders seemed less tense, and her smile became more natural. She spoke briefly with Tammy, their conversation quiet and private, before returning to the bridal suite to finish getting ready. It was a small interaction, but it changed the entire emotional tone of the room. Tammy, meanwhile, remained near the main hall for a moment, greeting relatives who approached her. Some offered hugs, while others exchanged a few friendly words. The interactions were polite and respectful, though occasionally slightly awkward. Family gatherings can carry years of history within them, and the Slaton family had certainly experienced their share of ups and downs. Still, the fact that Tammy was standing there confidently, participating in the celebration, spoke volumes about how much she had changed. For years, fans had watched her struggle with isolation and health issues that made leaving home extremely difficult. At times, even small social gatherings felt overwhelming for her. But now she was attending her sister's wedding, surrounded by dozens of people,